Are you unsatisfied with your Hot Toys collection, left feeling unfulfilled? Well, maybe it's time for a change. No, better yet, maybe it's time for a transformation. Building and displaying a Hot Toys collection is an ongoing challenge, and as figure offerings evolve and our tastes evolve, it leaves us wondering how best to proceed. Well, today we're going to forge a path forward and build a Hot Toys collection that we're proud of together. But before we get started, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so you're notified when content goes live here. That said, let's do the necessary work and transform our Hot Toys collections together. Thank you so much for joining me for another video today, and let me briefly explain how I'm approaching today's video. So I've been collecting Hot Toys for a little over 8 years now, and in that time, my collection has transformed tremendously. It's gone from a collection that I think was okay to a collection that I'm very proud of. So I think this video will be helpful for collectors that are just starting out, or maybe collectors that are looking to elevate their overall display to the next level and they're just not quite sure where to start. So what we're going to do today is put my collection under the microscope and assess what strategies have helped me in building a collection that I'm very proud of, and maybe how they can help you get to that point as well. The first insight that I want you to recognize is that change doesn't often occur until it's required to. So if you look at my original collection tour back in, I believe it was 2019, I had very large wooden display cases with glass doors that my dad actually picked up from an antique store that was closing down at the time. Eventually, I decided to move in with a partner that I was dating at the time. This was a couple years back. I moved to a different state in order to do so. We were actually only dating for about 4.5 months before I moved in, so not a very wise decision, didn't quite work out. But moral of the story is, I eventually transferred those display cases, the big wooden ones, over to my partner's place, and then I eventually ended up moving them back here. But the problem was they're a little bit too heavy for the floors because they weighed several hundred pounds apiece. Well, I eventually had to get rid of them, and moral of the story is I spent a lot of money on moving display cases that weren't even my forever cases. So the moral of that story is that it's important to recognize that sometimes change is not going to happen unless you force it to happen, unless you force a positive change because you're required to adapt to the circumstances that have now been placed before you. And that leads me into my second suggestion, and that's to invest in your forever display cases sooner rather than later. Now, the caveat to that is that if you're brand new to Hot Toys collecting and you have maybe less than 5 figures because you're just starting out, I would not recommend going balls to the wall and buying $5,000 worth of Maji case display cases because you're not quite sure whether the hobby is going to be for you long term or not yet. And I think once you've determined that this is a hobby that you're going to spend a significant amount of time in, then I think at that point you want to invest in your forever display cases, whether they be Maji Space or IKEA display cases, or maybe like a custom display case, or maybe even the Apex Time cases or something along those lines that are going to display your figures in a way that looks really clean. And I know I'm going to sound like a broken record for those who know me well, but the buy nice or buy twice ideology is one that I will always subscribe to. Buy the nice thing once instead of buying the cheaper thing twice that you're inevitably going to have to replace when it breaks down or you're unhappy with it. And my third suggestion, kind of circling back to what we were just discussing, is that if you're just starting out, start small and don't chase others. Hot Toys collecting is primarily about personal fulfillment, enjoyment, and enrichment, not about external validation. So if you're feeling fulfilled with your collection and proud of what you've displayed, that's going to get you to come back to the hobby more frequently rather than others doing it for you. You're going to inevitably trade out figures that you just don't have as meaningful of a connection to because you bought them to fill a void or some sort of other reason to chase other collectors to build a display more quickly, which you really don't need to do. So avoid that pressure at all costs. And that is a perfect segue into number 4, which is choosing meaningful figures rather than figures that fill a void. Think of it in terms of this analogy. When you're choosing which people to spend your time with, do you choose people that fill a void or the ones that are meaningful in some way to your life? I'm assuming it's the latter, and I'm hoping that your Hot Toys collection is going to be the same. If you're choosing figures that are meaningful, they're going to sustain you longer and stay in your collection longer. But I think figures that start with meaning and then go from there, I think that's the best way to approach it, meaning first. If I'm choosing figures to fill a void, once that void is filled, I promise you, over time, you're going to be left feeling unfulfilled, and it's very counterproductive to your budget and to your display space. And the number 5 suggestion that I have is that you should recognize that Hot Toys collecting is always evolving, and so will your display. As I've said before, there are so many high quality figure and statue offerings in today's collectible market, more than ever before. And because of that, you're going to have to make difficult decisions because budget and space is forever going to be finite. And considering this is the reality in which we live, you're going to have to be prepared to make tough decisions. And I think at the end of the day, you're going to have to decide what's important to you. You're going to have to be prepared to make space for 2.0s, 3.0s, rooted hair artisan versions, alternate versions by differing companies. Changing figures out is kind of part of the hobby, so you're going to have to be prepared to be a little bit fluid and adaptable. And the sixth lesson that I've learned that's been super helpful is that less is often more. What I mean by this is that I'm more so a fan of collections that have a little bit more room to breathe and prioritize display over fitting as much volume into a display case as possible. When I had to move back home after my breakup and I had to get all my collectibles back here to Maryland, it was quite the ordeal, and it really made me recognize, do I really need all of these things in my display space at once? And it allowed me actually to curate my collection a little bit because I recognized the reality that I didn't. There were figures that I really didn't need in my collection that weren't as meaningful to me as other ones that I felt like I really needed to have. And that type of experience, again, required me to reflect and think about what was truly most important to me and what would be the best collection space for me personally. And in number 7, I want to throw this idea at you guys. Organization is probably more important than you realize. And I've said this before in other videos, but I really like the idea of displaying themes. So whether it's a Star Wars theme or a Marvel theme, or maybe a movie and television theme or a video game theme, themes that really make a cohesive display so everyone can connect with what you have going on in that specific display space. It also allows you to stay organized and determine which characters are most important to you, which IPs, and which avenues of storytelling really connect with you the most. And I think that's a really important aspect of collecting, to recognize what makes you you and what your passions are and why. Quality organization makes for a really clean display, and this is something that is a never-ending process. With my display, I'm still not entirely happy with how it's organized, but I'm working on improving it day by day. And that's what really makes us feel like it's a fulfilling hobby. It's something we've worked on, something that we're proud of, and something that we've built over time ourselves. And finally, at number 8, it's more about the pursuit of the dream than achieving the dream. This is just a general life principle that is very wide encompassing, but certainly is applicable to Hot Toys collecting. And it's very much true. I think the process of building a Hot Toys collection, engaging with the community, being engaged with the figures and the films and the storytelling and the characters, that's the whole process. Being involved in something that's bigger than yourself. Creating a collection that you're proud of that's bigger than you. It's meaningful and it's fulfilling in ways that other things just aren't. That's because the pursuit of the dream is the actual process. That's the journey. So pursuing that dream of building a Hot Toys collection that you are so proud of and feel so fulfilled by, that's the dream, and that's what you should focus on. And that's that, guys. Thank you so much for joining me for another video today. Hopefully you found it helpful and entertaining. These are just 8 insights that I found very helpful in my Hot Toys collecting journey that have helped me transform my collection over the last 8 or so years into something that I'm very proud of. Maybe I can do another follow-up video if you guys want to see me dive more into my personal collection and how it's evolved over time, and just what sort of principles I've learned in that time. Maybe a little bit more deeper of a reflection. But let me know whether you enjoyed this video first. Drop a comment down below. Let me know how your Hot Toys collection has transformed, what strategies have been helpful to you, and what you've learned over the time in the hobby that you've been here, which I think would be pretty cool because we can all learn from each other. And of course, if you like this video, make sure to like the video down below, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so you don't miss any content when it goes live here. There's live streams, reviews, helpful guides like these, breaking news videos. There's also Will.Foxification on Instagram for most updates I post there first, and then I come here to YouTube. So check out that as well. And of course, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Guys, thank you so much for joining again. I will catch you in the next video. Peace out. See you later. Bye.